Hi, my name is Dr. Tiffany Manuel, and I'm the president and CEO of TheCaseMade. And I'm here today with some folks who are talking about continuous quality improvement at the UC Davis campus that have all come together to really think about how we do this work even better. And my presentation today is really about how we build broader support for the work that we do, not just in terms of the folks, that our stakeholders and folks who work with us, but the folks that we need to lean into the work in order to make it really successful. So let me just step back and say a little bit more about what I do in my organization, and then I'd love to sort of talk to you about what I said at the conference. So we work with change makers, entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, philanthropic organizations, policymakers, community activist groups, folks all over the country who recognize there are things that are happening in their communities that need broader support, that need broader involvement and engagement, and they're struggling to build the groundswell of support that they need to advance the work of those around those issues. And so, oftentimes the things that get in the way, the thing that keeps people from being able to lean in, are a whole set of things that have nothing to do with the issues, but things like they're afraid of change, they don't want things to get worse, they see the partisanship happening between the political parties, and they think it's a political issue, and so they're reticent to get involved. And so what happens is they lean out. And that makes everything harder, especially for those of us that are trying to move things forward. So what I do is I work with folks all over the country to help them understand and master the principles of how you get people to lean in, even when their sort of better angels are a little bit afraid to do that. So in the conference today, I gave a couple really key points, and I'm just going to count some of those down here just to summarize. First of all, we talked about the work that we do is very technical. So continuous quality improvement is a technical exercise, but it's also very adaptive. And I will say for a lot of us, we are taking care of the technical aspects of what we need to do in the space to do our work. But we need to pay more attention to the adaptive part of it. The adaptive part of it is how do we get stakeholders all around the table who may not even see their stake in what we're doing to see their stake in it and to want to lean into it and to actually help us do it. That's the adaptive process. And so we talked a lot in the session today about how we underscore the adaptive nature of what we're doing. The world around us is changing, the environment is changing, the need is changing, and how we continue to adapt and bring partners into that. That's really important for our work. The second thing is, because these issues are adaptive, they require the alignment of a whole number of stakeholders sort of moving in the same direction. If you've got any number of folks who are not just not leaning in, but oppositional, it just makes the work so much harder. So the alignment of all these stakeholders being on the same page is really important, and how we do that, the intentionality around that, is really critical. Third, and this was probably the hardest one for many of you, stop talking about how bad things are. A lot of us, because of the issues we work on, we want to bring urgency to it, so we talk all about how bad things are. This many people are poor, and this many kids are in the child welfare system, and this many kids don't have a place to live, and this many da-da-da-da-da. And what happens is it makes the situation feel so big and so crisis-ridden that people don't want to lean in. It feels too big, right? Especially when you think about the fact that there's crises all around us. Every night on the news, there's crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. And after a while, people lean out. They can't absorb that much crisis. And so rather than listen to you all talk about the importance of your work for the community, they turn on Netflix, right? Right? They turn on, Game of Thrones or something, right? Because that allows them to escape all of the crisis that seems to be happening in our world. And so while some of us came to these issues because we saw how urgent they were, we already have those folks. The folks that we need are the folks who are not leaning in because they see how big these problems are. In fact, they're leaning out. So stop talking about how bad the problems are, but, turn it around by talking about the ways in which you pull people forward. So the last thing I really talked about was really making sure that we are mastering the fine art of how you pull people forward. And there were a set of principles I gave you, starting with the we and why you're doing this work first, not the what. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that why has to connect with a why that they have. And when you align those two things together, that's when you get people to be excited about your work, not just leaning in because they know this is a big problem and they're, but excited and aspirational about what you all can achieve together. That's the connective tissue that helps you to get people excited about that. And I talked about the Nike commercials and some of the commercial advertisers. the commercials folks, they don't advertise and market to you based on all the problems in the world. They market to you based on who you are, your why, and they connect it to their product. And when they're able to do that, you go out and buy all kinds of things you probably don't need, that are probably too expensive, et cetera, et cetera. So the challenge for us and the opportunity is to take some of those practices that we know help people to get excited and engaged about our work. I talked a lot about the dominant narratives and reframings away from some of the negative stuff in the conversation so that people see the opportunity in what we're trying to do. I won't talk very much about that here, but for those of you who understand that often people associate very negative things with the kind of work that we do, that it's challenging, it's about poverty, it's about kids who are struggling, they don't want to, that navigating around that carefully can be helpful. And then lastly, I talked a lot about the use of data, and this is really important for those of you in quality improvement. And I talked about bringing people around to the slow brain. How do you help people to the creative opening? How do you sort of shock people into, right, waking up? We're so focused on distracted by other kinds of issues that when you engage folks in a new and unique way, it forces them to go, wait, what? And that's the kind of thing you need to wake folks up. So I won't say more than that. I'll just say that we're living in an incredible time where the challenges that we face are getting bigger, taller, and more important. Climate change, what's happening in our schools, our children, affordable housing, a whole range of issues. And we have to be able to get our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, our institutions, our agencies, much more involved in how we solve these issues. But in order to do that, we have to understand and master the fine art of how you pull people forward. So I hope in the presentation today, I gave you a lot of good grist for the mill for how you begin to do that. And I look forward to seeing the work that you do coming out of the session. Thank you so much.